Alright folks, so in this video I'm going to be showing you 4 potential things that you can do with your text in Adobe InDesign. The reason why I've chosen to do these 4 specific things that you can see on the screen here, so you've got kerning, tracking, leading and hierarchy, is because if you look at this exam paper from 2020 something, don't know what year it is, a couple of years ago, doesn't matter. You can see here that part of the specific brief is to say that you need to have some sort of appropriate leading, tracking and kerning and hierarchy. So I think it's probably best to do a video showing, like, first of all explain what these things mean, just in case they do come up, but also how you might adjust those and a couple of different ways you could adjust those, because especially for the leading, I think there is a way you can do it that's quite easy, but I prefer a different way because it gives you a bit more freedom. So, going back to InDesign, the kerning is the first thing we're going to look at. Now, the kerning basically means the space between individual letters. I don't know, wrong, haven't I? Let me just add a little bit to here. This is why you should plan these things before you record them, but never mind, can't bother starting again. So, a lot of people do get confused between the kerning and the tracking. So, when we're talking about the tracking, I'll start with this one first because it's a bit more easier. We are talking about the space between the letters for an entire word. So if you think about this word here, design, you can see you've got this space here between D and E, this space between the E and the S, this space between the E and the S and the I, the space in between the I and the G, and the space here between the G and the N. All of these spaces together are part of the tracking. Alright, so if we were to adjust the tracking, we're increasing the size of all of these spaces at the same time. So if you look at this word here, design, let's say for example I want to make this a little bit bigger. I want to have it so that it stretches and fills the entire page so it's level with the word graphic. I could just increase the font size if I wanted to, but that might make it look really big and really horrible. So alternatively, what you can do is, if you highlight the word, and then you'll see here, you've got this option here for your tracking, which it should say, if it hovers over it, it's not saying, it's this one here with the V and the A there. If I just increase that, you can see there, it is just increasing the space between the letters. So there you go, that is how you increase your tracking. Obviously, how you might use that is completely up to you, and it all depends on what it is you've been asked to do, what your ideas are, etc, etc. But from a pure technical point of view, that's how you increase the tracking. So the tracking is this space here between the individual letters in an entire word. The kerning is different. So the kerning, it is still talking about the space between individual letters, but it's just this one space. It's not all of the spaces in all of the letters for the entire word. So if you can see there, if I put my cursor here, this option here is for increasing your kerning. So if I just increase that, you can see there, it's putting a bit more of a gap between the D and the E. Now you might ask yourself, why the hell is that even a thing? Why is that even something that might be useful? And to be fair, you probably are quite right. It's not the most useful thing in the world to think about, but if you use it, it will probably depend on what sort of font you use and the way that font works with other letters. So what I mean by that is, if you look at, I don't know, this space here between the I and the G, this space here between the S and the I, but then this space here between the G and the N, they're quite big spaces, whereas this one's quite small. So you might think, well, maybe if I might nudge that up a little bit. So if I nudge that up a little bit, just to make it a bit more consistent. So there you go, now those spaces look a little bit more even, give or take. So yeah, you might not need to use that, but it's always useful that to have, and especially if it specifically asks you about it on the brief of the exam paper. So tracking is this one here, is the space between all the letters for an entire word, whereas the kerning is the individual space between the individual letters themselves. Leading, again, I've not changed it. Why have I changed it? It's what happened when you copy and paste. Oh dear. So the leading is the space between the lines of text. So it's these spaces here. Rather than being the horizontal lines, sorry, the vertical lines between the letters is the horizontal lines between the individual lines of text. So this tool here is the tool for adjusting your tracking, or your leading, sorry. So if I highlight, let's say I want to change the leading of the entire piece of text, I'll highlight the text and then I can just increase the leading. Oops, don't do that. I can increase the leading as I go like that. Keep going, I'm using the arrow keys here to do that. So I'm just going to increase it as much as I want to. And keep going until I've got it how I like it. Okay, now what it will do is it will do it all consistently. And there you go, you've got some nice big gaps between your words. Now, you can do it that way. If you don't want to do all of your text at once, you can highlight certain lines and just adjust certain lines if you want to. Oops, don't do that though. There we go. So I'm just going to move these two back in a little bit if I want to. So that's one way of doing it. Alternatively, to make things easier for you, you could, rather than do it that way, you might find this way a bit easier, is to do all of your lines of text, especially for something like a headline or something, in individual text boxes. So I'm going to design there. Oops, spelled design right, you idiot. And then I can just move it with my selection tool. That's an easy way of adjusting the leading if you want to do it that way. All right, it's up to you which one you prefer. Obviously, if it's a big block, if it's a big block of text like a deck or a main body copy of text, I would always be tempted to use the tracking tool here. The leading tool here, just because it'll do it all at once for you. Whereas if it's something that's a bit bigger, that requires a bit more time and patience, maybe do it in individual text boxes, because then you can just adjust things as you want to. So, final thing we need to look at, and again, this is something we have done, so I'm not too worried about this one, is hierarchy. Now, hierarchy, all that means is, a hierarchy means creating a sense of importance or dominance. So if you want to adjust the hierarchy of text, all it basically means is making sure that the size of the text that you use is going to make the most important part of it stand out, right? So by that I mean, in this piece of text here, I have made the word graphic and design into a bigger font size than is my passion, purely because I want to create emphasis for graphic design. So if you were to put this, where's it gone now, this one here, in the context of what it is you're designing, for you to show that you understand hierarchy, you would be expected to show that you understand that some words, some pieces of text might need to be a different size than others depending on what the purpose of that piece of text is. If it's a headline, or if it's a title, or a masthead, or something like that, then it probably needs to be a little bit bigger than something like a deck, or a stand first, or a pull quote, or something like that. So it's about understanding which pieces of text require larger sizes. Nice and simple, really, that one, to be honest. And how the size of those texts can create importance. Again, simple way to increase the size, to increase the font, is just to highlight the text and increase the font size. Simple as that. You can stretch them if you want to as well. Make them a bit wider. Up to you, you don't have to, but there are a few options that you can do to make things a bit bigger in order to create hierarchy. But there's just a couple of key terms explained and how you might do those. Not too difficult, to be honest, really. And to be fair, chances are it might not be something that you will necessarily need to be considering, but it's been on the paper before, therefore I think it's always worth knowing what those terms mean, but knowing how to do them as well. And again, it's probably something that you already do. It's just you might never have understood the actual terms for that before, because we haven't really done much about that. So if they come up, that's what you need to be looking for. Okay, so kerning, the space between individual letters, the tool for that is here. So it's this first V/A, the one that doesn't have the white box around it. And you increase it, and it increases the space between the individual letters. Tracking is increasing the space between, gotta highlight the letter first, you idiot, highlighting the space between all the letters in one word. Your leading is the space between your lines of text. So it is that one. I'm going to increase that as much as I want. So if you can hear that sound in the background, that's my cat using a scratching pose. She's chosen a really good time to do that, never mind. And hierarchy means the size of text. It's determining how important that piece of text is. So if it's bigger, it will be more important. It's like a title, headline, masthead, whatever. If it's something like a piece of body copy, it's probably going to be a bit smaller. Alright? So pretty straightforward, really. Any questions on that, you know where to find me, but make sure you're practicing this stuff, alright, just so you know how to do it. Anything else? So again, come and see me, send me an email. Other than that, I'll catch you next time.